Hello and welcome viewers, I'm Pia and you're watching the China Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top stories. China agrees to resume trade talks with the United States as soon as possible. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has confirmed that his meeting with Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping is likely to go ahead. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has met his Canadian counterpart Anita Anand in Beijing, marking 55 years of diplomatic ties. Both sides have reaffirmed their commitment to enhancing dialogue and cooperation with China, calling the visit a chance to renew bilateral relations. 64 South Koreans held in Cambodia have returned home under arrest. Now, authorities say that they are implicated in scams, voice phishing and fraud and will face investigations and legal action and drug testing upon arrival in South Korea. US President Donald Trump has stated that he will discuss ending the war in Ukraine with China. Meanwhile, China says that it supports peaceful settlement efforts and welcomes the US-Russia meeting between Trump and Putin that is slated to be held very soon. US President Donald Trump has urged Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to stop the fighting along the battle line, calling for an end to the war. Zelensky, meanwhile, says that he trusts Trump's intentions and remains open to talks aimed at restoring peace. Hamas has returned another hostage's body to Israel, promising to hand over the rest as well. Israeli Prime Minister's office has urged Hamas to follow Trump's 20-point peace plan, warning that the time is running out in order to live up to their commitments of the first phase. The UN Security Council has unanimously extended Haiti arms embargo for another year and has added 2 individuals to its sanctions list as well. The Council has warned gang violence undermines law, human rights and humanitarian efforts while worsening the country's socio-economic crisis. Pakistan has launched airstrikes inside Afghanistan, killing at least 10 and breaking a 48-hour ceasefire. A Taliban official has confirmed that Pakistani strikes have hit Afghanistan and stressed that the truce is now broken. Well, viewers, those are the headlines and our key focus. China has now agreed to restart trade talks with the United States as soon as possible. This follows a video call between U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Chinese Vice Premier Haley Feng, where both sides had a candid and constructive discussion on key issues. Bessent has confirmed that he will speak with Vice Premier He again later this evening in order to facilitate the continuation of talks. He has stated that trade tensions between the two countries have de-escalated recently, particularly after China's move to tighten controls on rare earth exports, which led the new U.S. tariffs to be imposed. Listen in.
I think that things have de-escalated. We hope that China will show the respect that we have shown them. And I am confident that President Trump, because of his relationship with President Xi, will be able to get things back on a good course.
Trump has also stated that his planned meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping is likely to take place as scheduled and has added that both countries are getting along and this meeting could help stabilize U.S.-China relations. Listen in. All right, there seems to be quite the trouble playing out this soundbite. We'll get that technical error sorted out. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has also spoken about his proposed 100% tariffs on Chinese goods, stating that it is unlikely to be sustainable. He has in fact also blamed Beijing for the latest trade tensions but expressed hope for a resolution. Both sides now appear to be focused on lowering tensions and finding common ground. Bessent is set to meet with Chinese Vice Premier in person next week in order to continue these talks. With us on the broadcast is Dr. Satoru Nagao, Fellow at the Hudson Institute, joining us from Tokyo. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. we're seeing these trade tensions between United States and China simmer for quite a while now. The US imposed 100% tariffs. China retaliated by imposing port fees on US flagged carriers as well. That is not all. We'd earlier seen the United States target the exports of semiconductor chips, particularly NVIDIA chips, to China as well. So this has been building for quite a while now. Do you think that with Xi Jinping and Donald Trump now meeting in South Korea very soon, we could see these tensions sort of de-escalate, or is it likely to still continue? Because we've seen several rounds of talks take place earlier as well, whether in London or in Madrid.
In the long run, China, there's a possibility China will be the most important threat against the U.S. status as a number one. That's why this is destiny for the U.S. to compete with China. But this is in the long run. And even if the U.S. want to do, what the U.S. can do, it's more minimum because China prepared well. In the global free trade rule, under this rule, China is dominating many areas, including the supply of rare earths. In this case, China can use this dominant status as a card to negotiate with the United States. And the United States rely on China, it is true. For example, there are 30% of the US weapon use parts made in China. So that is a very important aspect of this competition. Even if the U.S. try to show their strong point, which is military power, China has the grip. China has the grip, and in this case, United States need cooperation with China to build up military power against China. So under such kind of situation, just a tariff is not a practical method to deal with China. China's way is more sophisticated, and the United States need to improve their method to deal with China. And just now, the United States need to solve the other issue in the Middle East and Europe. So that's why the U.S. cannot share enough time to deal with China. So timing is very bad for the United States. That's why China start this competition, this time restrict exporting rare earths more severely. That is starting point, and the U.S. retaliate. But at the same time, U.S. realize this kind of the rising tariff is not enough to deal with China. So that's why the one kind of the ceasefire is needed just now. But so that is the current situation. So in the long run, of course, the U.S. need to compete with China, but just now, they should stop this competition temporarily.
Indeed, as you've pointed out, China does seem to be standing up to the United States. In fact, we've recently seen some rather strongly worded statements come out from Beijing. Beijing has accused Washington of engaging in a unilateral bullying. But speaking about the United States itself, we are seeing a government shutdown in the US. Experts are warning that with the government shutdown, the United States economy could head to a recession. At the same time, we're also seeing the impact of these tariffs are resulting in increased prices of commodities for consumers, which would result in sort of a double whammy of both inflation and recession. Can the US really afford to continue its trade war with China in such a context?
Yes, that is very bad timing for the United States, and China is exploiting this timing to make a pressure to the United States, I think, because China carefully checks the U.S. move, because they know that this competition is a very important competition. The fate of China rely on this competition. So that's why China carefully checks the situation. If U.S. shows some weakness, of course, China try to exploit it. So that's why the U.S. need to compete, but China is fighting well. But at the same time, anyway, if U.S. power is bigger than China as a total power, So that's why, of course, in the near future, the time will come for the United States to make more bigger pressure to take the initiative in the negotiation with China. That could happen. But just now, China has the advantage, and that is the reason the Trump administration do not want to escalate the U.S.-China competition just now, I think.
Indeed, I request you to stay on with us as we're tracking some further updates. The head of the International Monetary Fund, Kristalina Georgieva, has now expressed hope that a resolution can be reached to ease the ongoing trade tensions between the United States and China. Speaking at her final press conference during the IMF and World Bank semi-annual meeting in Washington, Georgieva has stated that she remains optimistic that both sides will find a path to agreement. She's emphasized that US-China trade dispute, which has had significant effects on global economic growth, needs to be addressed in order to avoid further disruption to the global economy. Her comments come as financial leaders continue to discuss ways to stabilize international trade and support growth. Take a look.
We do hope that there would be an agreement that would bring the current tension down. We will, of course, carefully calculate the impact should that become necessary. You probably recall in the World Economic Outlook, we do project a downside scenario, and while it is not calculated on that specific risk, what it illustrates is just about what the likely impact of this kind of deterioration would be. It would be a material impact on global growth. But again, I want to stress that my expectation is to see that the path to agreement will be found, especially judging by the atmosphere we have witnessed in the room.
Still with us on the broadcast is Dr. Nagao. We've heard what the IMF chief has had to say, but in the meantime, we're also seeing, China imposing sanctions on U.S. affiliates of South Korean shipbuilder Hanwha Ocean as well. What sort of concerns do you have sitting in Tokyo? How would then Japan also be impacted by this? Because we're already seeing now South Korea being sandwiched between China and the United States. Its priorities now taking a dent as well with this sort of trade war continuing. How do you think Japan is likely to be impacted?
Trump administration's rising tariff policy is directly linked with the changing rule of the global free trade. Because under the current global free trade rule, China is catching up to the United States, and this is dangerous for the United States to maintain their #1 status in the world. So that's why the rule itself that they try to change. It looks like in the past that's playing sports is football, but now they need to change from football to the American football. Something like that is what is happening. So rising tariff and trade should be restricted under the rule of the international trade. So global free trade, no war is better, no tariff is better, but that is not a new rule in the international trade. That is the Trump administration direction to deal with China. So that's why view from IMF, of course, the view from many countries which rely on the global free trade, including South Korea or including Japan or other countries, of course, the changing rule itself is not beneficial on surface. But at the same time, without changing the rules, China is catching up with the United States, and they will be the #1 status. That is not comfortable for Japan and South Korea or the other country, or the US side country. So that's why even if economically this is not beneficial, view from security this is beneficial. That is a little bit ironical situation, controversial situation for both of Japan and South Korea, I think.
Indeed, sir. Requesting you to stay on with us as we track some further crucial updates. We're now learning that Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has met with Canadian Foreign Minister Anita Anand in Beijing. Both countries have reaffirmed willingness to enhance dialogue, exchanges and cooperation in various fields. Now, according to Wang Yi, China is willing to strengthen communication with Canada, enhance mutual understanding, eliminate disruptions and rebuild mutual trust with a forward-looking spirit in order to advance the improvement of bilateral relations. Meanwhile, Anand stated that Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney attaches great importance to cooperation with China and is committed to recalibrating the Canada-China relations. Now, also according to her, Canada supports multilateralism and is ready to closely coordinate with China in multilateral platforms to jointly uphold the status of the United Nations and support free trade. Now, this of course comes as long-standing tensions between the two countries have been simmering, but we're seeing a turnaround as far as the Carney administration is concerned. Remember, earlier in August, Chinese officials imposed preliminary anti-dumping duties on Canadian canola, which again was a development that came a year after Ottawa announced a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles. More recently, Beijing has indicated that lifting auto tariffs could lead to relief on canola duties, but up until now, Canada has not really specified any particular deal with regards to this, emphasizing that negotiations are covering a wide range of issues beyond single sectors as well. Still with us on the broadcast is Dr. Sartor Rotnagar. Interesting development because we know that Canada is the United States' second largest trading partner. But in recent times, we've also seen the Canada-US trade and tariff tiff as well. In light of bottlenecks in global supply chains, as you've just pointed out, how crucial is it then that a major trading partner of the United States of America is now shaking hands with China in Beijing?
This event between Canada and China will happen because of the APEC will happen in Korea, and the many leaders of the belong to the APEC will visit this area, so it is a good timing to hold such kind of meeting. But at the same time, it is true the Canada and US negotiation is of course still ongoing, and indeed this is not a good situation to conclude just now. So this is a situation China can exploit it. But at the same time, view from the Canada, indeed the trade with China is both good and bad is included, because in case of the fentanyl issue, because the fentanyl came to Canada, the US imposed a tariff to Canada, that has happened. So products came from China create a problem with the United States. That is the situation in Canada. So trade with China is of course directly this is beneficial for Canada. The Canadian believe for a long time, and if they negotiate with the United States, this is one kind of the alternative income, and that is beneficial on surface. That is true. But at the same time, that this Canada and China relation, China trade could create another problem with the United States too. So both good and bad exist for Canada. So that's why even if Canada meets China, during Canada-US negotiation has not going well, this is not a chance for Canada to improve the relation with China, I think. This is a more careful manner that Canada need to do, and Canada will act as a careful manner, I think.
Indeed, and as you pointed out, is this more of a necessity than Canada really genuinely wanting to do this, rather than to, just sort of balance out and diversify, the amount that it imports, that it sources from the world?
Yeah, view from diversified the trade partner. In this case, indeed, both U.S. China should not be the main for Canada, the Canadian believe, I think, because another country will not create a problem with the U.S. so much. But if the Canada trade with China, automatically it will create a problem with the United States. So that's why this is not a good choice. So as a diversification, view from diversification, more partner is needed, more third partner is needed. Europe is partner, Africa is partner, or India is partner, of course, or Japan is partner. The diversification could possible, and this is a good choice for Canada. The Canadian believe I think. So that's why. But in this case, this is not a trade with China or trade with trade with the main partner. It's not a diversification.
All right, so thank you so much for taking our time and sharing your analysis with us on NewsX World Today. With that, viewers, we're shifting focus to some further developments coming in. A group of 64 South Koreans who had been detained in Cambodia for alleged involvement in cyber scam operations arrived at the Incheon International Airport. South Korea had sent a team to Cambodia on the 15th of October to discuss cases of fake jobs and scam centers involved in kidnapping dozens of its nationals. Now, as per reports, more than 1,000 South Koreans are believed to be among about 200,000 people of various nationalities involved in scam compounds in Cambodia. Listen in to what South Korean authorities had to say.
정부는 이번 방문을 통해서 캄보디아 정부의 그간의 단속 노력과 우리나라와의 긴밀한 협력 의지를 확인했습니다. 이를 바탕으로 정부는 캄보디아 내 우리 국민 대상 스캠 범죄 근절을 위해서 효과적인 시스템을 구축하고 이를 적극적으로 활용하도록 하겠습니다.
캄보디아 당국이 체포가 돼서 우리한테 통보가 되면 거기에 맞는 방식으로 우리 법적 절차에 따라서 송환을 해서 우리나라 법의 심판을 받도록 하고 아울러 그 체포된 사람들의 국내 조사를 통해서 보이스피싱 규모를 조직을 전모를 항상 밝히는 데 주력을 하도록 하겠습니다. 좀 전에 여러분들 들어오셨을 때 제일 앞에 박스 같은 거 보이셨잖아요. 그게 이제 캄보디아 당국으로부터 받은 휴대폰 포함한 증거물들이거든요. 그런 증거물에 대한 교류 이런 것들이 신속하게 원활하게 이루어져서 초기 수사도 원활하게 이루어질 것을.
Shifting focus away to the Middle East, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office has confirmed that Hamas has handed over the remains of one more hostage to Israel. This comes after Hamas has insisted that it is committed to returning all the dead captives that are still unaccounted for. The convoy carrying the remains of the deceased body has also arrived at the National Center of Forensic Medicine in Tel Aviv for identification. Meanwhile, Netanyahu's office has emphasized that Hamas knows where the remaining hostage bodies are and that the group must adhere to US President Donald Trump's 20-point peace plan. The Prime Minister's office has also stressed that Hamas is running out of time. This comes as Hamas had earlier claimed that extensive efforts and special equipment would be needed to recover the remaining bodies and that the group had returned all bodies it had access to. Israel had also earlier threatened to resume fighting if the ceasefire agreement was not adhered to. Meanwhile, Hamas leader Mohammad Nazal has stated that Hamas's presence is needed on the ground to protect aid deliveries from thieves and armed gangs. He's also stated that Hamas will be present on the ground during an interim period led by an administration of technocrats and that elections should be held in the region after a transitional period. He's also stated that Hamas wants a 3 to 5 year truce to rebuild Gaza and that this is not to prepare for a renewed war. With that, viewers, it's a wrap on this bulletin. More news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned on NewsX World.